Hi, everyone. I am Wendy Batts here with my friend and colleague, Ken Miller. On this episode of Random Fit, we are going to talk a little bit about your personality traits. We are going to move beyond just the simple likes and dislikes and explore the fundamental personality traits of yourself as well as possible clients, and think of it more than just ways of how you think and you feel and interact, and how your personality shapes not just your choices and exercises, but also in life.
The goal is to empower fitness professionals and exercisers to work with these innate tendencies. And rather than work against them, we're going to have it work for you, hopefully give you some insight on that. So like, follow, subscribe, download, share, give us a 5 out of 5 rating when you can. But overall, everybody, hope you guys enjoy the show.
You're listening to Random Fit with hosts Wendy Batts and Ken Miller, winner of a Gold Markham Award for Digital Media.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Random Fit with myself, Ken Miller, and Miss Wendy Batts.
Hey, Ken.
Wendy, how you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
I am good. And for this episode of Random Fit, we're going to dive into something a little bit. Uh, I, I find all our topics interesting, Wendy, but here we're going to talk about the fitness formula for your personality. So when I say your personality, we're all individuals. We all have a way of seeing life and doing things. But I think, Wendy, for this episode, when I was thinking about my client Ivan, here's a guy started up with me earlier this year and wanted to get back on track with his fitness, getting stronger. But then 2 weeks after we started, he starts doing jujitsu. 2 weeks after that, he starts doing judo. And I'm starting to think, okay, this guy is definitely an extrovert. So I started looking into personalities and extroverts versus introverts, because here's a guy, we started off 101, but now he's doing not just martial arts, but things he's doing in classes. So when I'm thinking about Ivan, on his personality, very outgoing, very extroverted guy. So when I started thinking about personalities, I started thinking, okay, was this a good match? Like, to be in this nice, quiet boutique personal training studio, and then now he's exploring, he's expanding his world. And I thought that was a really good thing, because he was doing something, or is doing something, that fits his extroverted personality. So what's your take, Wendy, at least initially, when it comes to talking about personality types and fitness?
Well, I think it's interesting because there's this thought that, somebody's dream workout, if it's a hit workout and they really want to be super sore the next day, they want to get crushed in the amount of reps they're doing and the amount of weight that they're lifting. They like to do what we talk about in previous episodes, Ken, when we did the exercise snacks. And then it's like, that is like a dream workout for somebody. And then you turn around, and if I were to give that to another client, it's like their biggest nightmare. They're like, I don't like to do exercise snacks. I don't like to sweat. I want to come in and move and do basically the minimum amount of work for maximum benefit, which we all have those clients. So you as the trainer have to also understand some of these different personality traits that they have. And then you think about other people too, in the career paths that they're really good at. I mean, I'm working now with someone that's taking care of my father, working with seniors and doing care that I personally cannot do. However, when we were in a conversation, she was like, I couldn't do what you do, meaning like trying to take someone to a higher level in their career in movement and making sure that they don't get injured. That's just not something that she's interested in. It's the complete opposite. So when you look at that, that's what does make us all unique, and the personality traits behind us. I mean, how many people have gotten married to someone that's completely different than they are? I mean, I am number one. If people have met my husband, they're like, you two are black and white, and we 100% are, but we're balanced. I'm more the extrovert. He's more the introvert. There's a lot of things that drive me nuts that he does, and I'm sure vice versa. And I think going through some of these different traits kind of makes you think a little bit differently, and hopefully will give you some ideas of how to make sure that you can emphasize and maximize what you're doing with them, because they may be different than even you.
Yeah. And I think that the one big point to kind of put our two thoughts together when it comes to personality types, and you're mentioning exercise snacks, you talked about HIIT and getting crushed during the workout. So just as there is a million styles and forms of training, working out, we can even throw hiking and yoga and Pilates in there. There's just as many different personality types. And I think as a fitness professional, I think the added dimension of being able to recognize that, all right, this person operates mentally, psychologically. Not saying that we're psychiatrists and we're doing psych profiles on all our clients, but I think it's after especially studying this for a little bit, reading through a couple books that I ironically already had, but realizing that the added dimension of figuring out, okay, who someone is, what their thought process, what they might enjoy most or appreciate most, and matching that with the style of working out that might best fit them. Because and Wendy, I know you've worked with hundreds if not thousands of clients throughout your years, and between athletes, personal training clients. I mean, now that I think about it, I kind of unloaded a weight off of my shoulder, because I always took it personally when somebody stopped training with me. I always looked internally and said, well, what did I do wrong? What did I do to lose this person's business? Why did they not continue on? And I took that personally. And as I go through different clients that I've had in the past, and I realized, it's just I wasn't the match for what they were looking for. And I think one of the goals that you and I both have for this episode is realizing, okay, well, let's figure out, okay, what are some ways we can figure out, okay, who a person is and what their personality type is, and then maybe recognize some ways that they can best move that matches with who they are. So I think that was one of the things that you and I both looked at in research when it came to the fitness formula for your personality.
Well, and I think too, when we started diving into it and we were looking at different things, I know you had the book and we were kind of trying to find stuff online to see how we could because there's just a ton of information on there.
Mhm.
And there was one indicator specifically that you and I looked at, and it was the Myers-Briggs type indicator. And what I found fascinating, and it was a mother-daughter combo during World War II, really to try to help females get into the workforce and trying to look at different personalities to help design what's a normal population versus someone that needs to be in this type of environment. And so I found that fascinating that these two individuals were just looking at people and seeing how different they were. They're not psychologists. They had no background in psychologists, but this particular indicator, or like testing, if you will, does different ways of looking at introverted versus extroverted, sensing things versus looking at different energy sources. How does someone move in the world? Like, are they high energy versus not? Thinking versus feeling? Because there are some people out there that can put their business hat on and really think through very complex things, and then there's other people that emotionally feel things when they're reading through it. They're thinking, well, how would I feel in that situation? And those are different positions that you want to hire for. And the more that we started looking into it, I mean, you and I both wrote this down and we're like, wow, it's estimated that over 80% of Fortune 500 companies and nearly 90% of Fortune 100 companies have used this particular type of assessment when they're hiring these individuals for particular positions. I just found that fascinating, especially when you're looking at leadership and developing that within your business.
Yeah, and again, going to that point that you mentioned with Catherine Briggs and Isabel Myers, the fact that they just wanted to match ladies going into the workforce with a job description that best fits them. So you're taking something that when it comes to putting somebody in a position that they're setting them up for success. And that's the parallel that I was pulling from that idea, and that you want to set somebody up for success in the workforce, because the last thing you want to do is put somebody in a job that they're going to hate, they're not going to enjoy. It's, they're just going to trudge through their day and they're just going to watch the clock. And I think, we need to take that same thought process, because the last thing I want to do, Wendy, if you are my client or if Eric is my client, the last thing I want to do is have you do, all right, let's jog around the block 10 times. And you're like, oh, I hate running. I did, but from that standpoint, are there other ways of challenging your cardiorespiratory fitness? 100% there is. But the idea here that they took with the Myers-Briggs evaluation is that, okay, they wanted them to be successful. They wanted them to go to work, do their job well. And that's the same thing you and I want with our clientele, or I think everybody should want within their own fitness programs, is to be able to, okay, I am going to look forward to this, or I'm at least not going to hate it. I mean, I hate to think about it like from that vantage point. But the Myers-Briggs test, have you taken that, Wendy?
I have. It was a long time ago, though.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it was something that was mandated actually in college. They wanted us to take it. So, when we were doing a leadership class, it was one of these, that was the particular indicator. And I found out a lot about myself, though, too, because I assumed that I was a certain way. And this test kind of showed me, are you now? And it kind of makes you really think through. So if you haven't had a chance to take it, you can find it online. It is actually, it's one of those things that, I don't know, I found fascinating. How about you? Have you taken it?
Just like you, I took it in a psych class, and I think I was like kind of just dead center in the middle between extroverted and introverted. So I'm not exactly the guy who likes to hermit themselves in a cave, but I'm also not going to be the life of the party if we were just shaking hands and starting.
Oh, you've been the life of the party, Ken. Usually there's some other things involved, but you're looking at this, and like I said, this was developed by this, mother-daughter combo, which I thought was so interesting because it's not rooted in science. So of course, when I think of NASM and it's evidence-based and it's very, very scientific, meaning that we say everything is peer-reviewed and evidence-based, and we have all these different things to support the process and the methodologies that NASM represents. I was like, there's got to be something that's more scientifically rooted in that. And there's another one, Ken, and I'll have you talk about this one because, I think you also find it fascinating. My father was in the Air Force, and there was actually this particular model we're going to talk about. Some people call it the Big Five. Some people call it the ocean model. And it was developed by multiple people that did a lot of research, and there is scientific evidence to support it. And they did this in the beginning, particular for the U.S. Air Force personnel. And so when you're thinking about that, because, when you go into the Air Force, are you going to work on the aircrafts, or are you going to do Morse code? I mean, that's what my father did back in the day. I don't even think it exists anymore, but he was an officer that worked literally with the president doing Morse code right before, Vietnam actually started. And so the information and the communication routes, something I don't understand to this day, I find it fascinating, but not everybody could do that. He was really good at math. He was really good at numbers. And then he ended up after that going into banking and business. So, so when you're talking about the ocean model, why don't you tell us a little bit more about that versus just how it was created?
Well, I mean, that's great backdrop there on the Big Five. So basically what we're talking about is characteristic traits. So the Big Five, as an acronym, spells out ocean. And just to kind of read off of my notes here, ocean, the O is for openness to experience. Are you one that, hey, let's try it, let's go do it? Or you're like, no, let's, maybe another day, or let me read about that a little bit more. So openness to experience. Conscientiousness, right? It's just how much thought goes into something, and how does this touch you psychologically. Extroversion, again, we saw that in the Myers-Briggs as far as introversion and extroversion. So how outward are you on that side of things? Agreeableness. And when I read on that, it's like, okay, are you one that just goes, okay, let's avoid conflict and I'll just go with it, it's not that big of a deal, or I'm gonna put my stake in the ground, and this is the this is the point I need to make and make sure everybody agrees with me. And then neuroticism. All right. So here we're talking about neuroticism versus the opposite, which is emotional stability. So when you look at the scale of those 5 characteristics, where do you lie on that scale? And like you said, Wendy, this was used for primarily um, uh, military purposes and how they're putting the personnel together. So that's those are the basic characteristics that they were measuring people against. So depending on how you slide on that scale, just determined where you would be as far as or how they would work with you. So that was actually a
Well,
pretty interesting point
yeah,
there.
and what I found fascinating is when you're looking at that one in particular, it's really thinking about some of these people that take it and how they answer it. It is a predictor of longevity. And I was like, well, how,
Mm-hmm.
of course, I've done a lot of master instructor roundtables with Dr. Marty Miller. Ken, you and I have talked about it on different random fit episodes. But, studies have shown when you're looking at conscientiousness that it's linked to longer life. And so I was like, well, what does that mean? And I guess they're less likely to engage in risky behavior. So excess drinking, smoking, doing things that other would look at you and say that, well, that's not good. And they're more likely to follow your medical advice. You make sure that you go to the doctor every year on the year for whatever checkups, just to make sure that everything is the way that it's intended to be. So they have very more better habits, if you will. And so I was like, wow, I think it's interesting because this is also something that is used more worldwide versus like in the States, because this is something that a lot of businesses have also found to be a part of just how people think on the psych side, right? Plus, if you're a business and you're going to hire someone that is a big risk taker, you're also, meaning the company is paying your medical benefits and all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're one of those that love to jump out of airplanes or bungee jump or do some of the craziness, go surfing some huge waves or whatever, that's fantastic because it just shows that you are a risk taker. Just know that when you take this, if you're doing it, you're being hired for a business. They do look at that as well.
Right. So, I mean, and I've had, when I really think about my work history, again, taking this into more of the workplace, there was a facility that I worked at. I had 26 personal trainers that worked under me. And I wish this was one of those things that I did, here's 2 pages, fill it out. And then it helped me work with them. And again, bringing this back into the fitness realm, if I incorporate this, and I'm actually thinking about, putting something as far as, how we do the health history, medical history, what would be wrong with asking a set of questions, which we'll discuss later, to ask our clients, okay, make sure, okay, is this the right thing for you? Because sometimes I'll put it out there, based on what I'm getting from you, let's see how this works out. And if you're one that's very extroverted and you're very open to experience, well, if you're in my 4 walls, there's only so much experience that you're going to get within these 4 walls with just you and I one-on-one. So
Ken, before we go into the next one,
Yeah.
which again, there's a DISC assessment, which I want to go and dive deep into because I find that guy fascinating, and I'll tell you why I find him fascinating. But before I get into that, I want to say that this episode of Random Fit is brought to you by NASM One, the membership for trainers and coaches. Members enjoy unlimited access to hundreds of career resources, get the Edge app to schedule and program clients, enjoy half off all certifications and specializations, access free CUs, and more. All of this for just $35 a month. Go to nasm.org/membership to learn more about NASM One. So, Ken, when we were looking at this DISC assessment, and because, when you're going through and you're looking at the different personalities, there are a ton out there. And so we're just choosing the ones that are more popular. So I'm sure that if you're listening to this, there's something that you may use or something that may have been taken off of some of these others. So we do understand that. But this guy, his name was William Marston? And he created this DISC assessment in the 20s. Okay, so 1920s. But a fun fact about him, I'll do this and then you can talk about the assessment because I found this to be awesome. But this guy was also a person that created the polygraph test. Right. So, I mean, he had a way of the way that your body trembles or sweats or the way your voice will come across is able to say whether it's a lie or nope, they pass based on how that question is answered. And of course, for a polygraph, for those of you guys that don't know what that is, they hook you up and then they're asking questions and it dictates, if you're telling the truth or not. But he also did the character Wonder Woman, right? So he modeled this as an ideal, psychologically balanced woman. Just so you know, I thought that was fascinating. To Wonder Woman. Don't know. Maybe that's part of this
well,
test.
That was what was the lasso of truth, or what was the she wraps her lasso around you and you can't do anything but tell the truth. Did you watch Justice League?
No.
Well, there's this scene where Aquaman, he starts just verbally just going off and starts telling just a flow of thought, and then he realizes, he's like, oh, he was sitting on her lasso, so he was just telling everybody like the truth, just unfiltered truth. So got to watch it. Sorry, spoiler alert if you have not watched Justice League. So Jason Momoa is plays Aquaman. Yeah,
okay. I do need to watch that.
Yeah, I think you might.
My son hasn't really been into the Marvel movies. He's more into like the racing movies and stuff like that. So,
Well, just so you know, Justice League is DC, so it's Detective Comics.
Oh,
so
well, see,
Marvel is its own deal.
See, I need you in my life. I don't even know
Batman,
the difference.
Superman, Wonder Woman, Marvel, X-Men, Ant-Man, Spider-Man.
It's really sad you know this, but okay.
I have been known to walk into a comic book store once or twice in my life. Wow. So this disc is made up of basically four main types. What we're talking about is dominance, right? Direct, driven, decisive. Okay, and where do you fall on that scale? Influence. Are you outgoing? Are you enthusiastic? How persuasive are you? Steadiness. Are you patient? Are you stable? Are you predictable? And then the last one, again, that conscientiousness, Wendy, has come up again and again. Analytical, precise, and private. So conscientiousness. So instead of 5, right, with ocean, right, we've got 4 categories here for the disc.
Yeah, and I think when you think about the creators of this, and it's an assessment tool that was later developed by business use, and Walter Clark was the one that really kind of put it into the business world. And you think what the ultimate goal of this one really is looking at the workplace and the workforce, and really more of the personnel, because they're trying to motivate the employees to be there, that they want to make sure that when somebody's hired for this position, they're super excited about getting up. And it's, how they say work shouldn't feel like work. It, shouldn't be a burden. It should be something you're excited about. That's kind of the thought process of going through this, is how can we make sure that we're hiring somebody? So therefore we're building effective teams where we've got the right person in the right job. Because, for those of you guys that have ever worked in business, or even as a trainer and being a mentor to other trainers, it's really hard when you have somebody that's like, yep, I'm here, and they're not motivated. They don't have the personality of this outgoing, which you have to be outgoing when you're meeting people and you're talking to them, because you're trying to build rapport. If you don't like to talk to people, you don't like walking in a gym, and you're trying to spend all your time and energy training someone like that, it really does just deflate you, as the one that's trying to help someone learn and grow. But if you have somebody that walks in and they're looking at it, they're super excited to be there. What can I do? This is what I went over last night. And they really are hungry for the content and the information. Those are the guys that I personally want to be around to help grow their business, because they're hungry to grow their business. And so I find this one to be something that when I'm personally working to try to help build my business and hiring practitioners to come work under me, they do need to go through this, because if they are not stable,
Well,
if they're unpredictable, if they're not outgoing, it's really hard when you have someone on the table and you have to have you have to communicate with them, but they're shy and they don't want to talk. Makes it really difficult.
That is a big one. And to your point, Wendy, one basic foundational thought is like, can you hold a conversation? You don't have to be the one to just make sure you're talking all the time, but if the client on the table wants to engage, can you, right? But Wendy, and I'm sure you've had this as well, like you have that person on the table and they just, you're working with them for 30 minutes and they're looking at their phone for 30 minutes, right? Or they're, you know what I mean? Have you had those, or are you just
athletes are the worst, by the way?
Yeah.
So yes, I've had that before. But you know what? And the way that I look at that though is what I'm doing, instead of them focusing on something that may be uncomfortable because I'm on an overactive area, I'm working on a trigger point, I'm doing something. Instead of them focusing on that, if they're like got their mind somewhere else and I'm allowed to do my job without them squirming around and having to like tie them down to hold them in place, it does sometimes make my life easy. And if it's someone that I have to see a lot,
right,
it's okay that I don't have a hold of conversation. It's like, hey, listen, do all that you want to do. If you have business that you have to conduct, that's totally fine. However, I need you to talk to me too, because if I ask you something, I need to know if it's too much or not enough. Like communication is super important. So setting ground rules is also one of those things. So.
Right. Okay. So now we're talking about the matchups, right? So we've identified ways that we can figure out, okay, well, what are your tendencies? Not that these are absolutely 100%. Now I've got you pegged. I know who you are. I know what your very next move is, but that's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about where your tendencies are and kind of give us a glimpse of, okay, well, what might be a route that's going to keep you compliant. Right. So when we talk about the matchups here, okay, high conscientiousness, right? We're talking about someone who's a planner. They want structure. They want details.
Me.
Yeah. So Wendy's like, okay, well, what are we doing tomorrow? How many reps, how many sets? And that's what makes you a really good instructor, a good teacher, because there is attention to detail and you know how to relay that, because that's how you accept information. So you want to know what's going on. And half the time I feel bad because when I'm like, I don't know.
You are not the planner, and working with someone not a planner as a planner, really hard to do, y'all. So again,
well, as long as you know it, as long as I know it, and I mean, I'm never going to take advantage of the fact that you're the planner. I'm not going to say, oh, go ask Wendy. But if I have I don't know, and I legitimately don't know, I know who has the answer. Right. But I think, and I have a handful of clients like, can you send me my workout? Yeah. Give me a day. And I'll send it to you. So give me a day to get on my Edge app, and I'm going to enter it and put it on there. But I have my pad of paper that I've just taken, scribbled down my notes, get the Edge app, boom, boom, boom. Here's your sets, here's your rep, here's your exercises, here's the circuit. Here you go. They will be the ones to monitor. They'll be the ones to know, okay, well, what's your suggestions for next time? Well, what if this isn't available? Well, then do this. Well, what if that's not available? Then do this. So they want to have contingency. Well, my experience
regressions, other options.
Yeah, exactly. You've got 5 ways of doing this one exercise. High extroversion, right? And you've worked with teams, you worked with individuals, and so what we're talking about is those that do want to be in sports. They do want to be amongst the crowd. So if somebody is asking about, well, do you offer group classes? I go, I don't offer group classes. This is a personal training studio outfitted for personal trainers. So if you want a group class, go to Mission HQ down the street. Go to, the other gym down the street. They have classes. They're going to be a better fit for you. Those that are adventurers, the ones that want to try something new and novel, and they're the ones that might have, and Wendy, I'm sure you have clients like this, they have 2 or 3 different gym memberships, right? They'll go to one gym for this one class or that one instructor. They'll go to this gym for this one class and that instructor. Or they like they like different aspects of different things. So they love different experiences. And then high agreeableness, again, they want to work with teams, they want to do yoga, they want to do, let's say, group walks. Like you ever have clients that do running groups?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they do classes that they know that they have, they like the instructor, they like the group that they're with. And then the last one is, when we talk about neuroticism, the mindfulness, these are the ones that want calm, right? I appreciate a good yoga class, right? Or even Pilates, believe it or not, right? But from that standpoint, I also, I'll go into the pool and I'll swim for a master's class every now and then. Not often, because half the time I feel like I'm drowning anyway. But there's a certain peacefulness to it. So that's one way of kind of identifying. Okay, well, if we know a personality type, well, what are the kind of things that they can do to match that?
Well, and I think it's or important to understand that if you take these different assessments, we're talking about these matchups, they all have their own quote ways of saying the same thing, because at the end of the day, you just want to know, do you have a competitor? Do you have a team player? Do you have someone that's extroverted or introverted? So it's just fascinating. So one of the biggest things that I want to kind of leave with today is to go through, get yourself, get online and take some of these tests. They're free to do. And, if you're a fitness enthusiast, get curious, know what's out there, take the big 5, get a baseline understanding of your own tendencies, because once you have something analyzing kind of the way that you think and kind of your personality based on how you answer questions, and if you're honest with yourself, you can find a ton about it. And then you want to audit the good things and the bad things. What are the things that you're looking at that you want to change? Because you're like, I don't want to be like on this side of the scale. I want to be over here. Because unless you look at some of this stuff, you really don't know maybe some of the areas that you should be improving, because you just didn't even know that was a thing. If you're a fitness professional, if you're going through and you're part of NASM or any other organization out there, but you're working with other individuals, you want to learn how to observe and listen to your clients, look at their behavior, how they walk, how they talk, do they cross their arms? Are they closed-minded? Think of a way to open different conversations. You want to customize things in their programming. It's not just the reps and the intensity. Customize the workout. Make sure it's individualized and make sure it's progressive, but it's not something that's aggressive. Progression and aggressiveness are completely different. So, I think if you kind of look at all that, you take these tests, you learn more about yourself. It's actually really, I found it fascinating. And that's one of the things I would kind of want to leave you with, is challenge yourself to go through and take it and just be honest with it, and then see how your results turn out.
I agree 100%, Wendy. And from that standpoint, I think that the one added take is that for those that have tried and stopped and tried and stopped and tried and stopped, maybe it's just, it's not just you. It's not just you. Maybe you just haven't thought about, you haven't done this stuff. You haven't done you haven't done the reflection. Well, again, nothing bad about that. A lot of people have it, but take that extra step. Like you said, Wendy, take a test, do an evaluation, find out about you, and then look at the fitness and exercise oriented facilities in your area, and kind of look at, well, I haven't tried Pilates before, or I haven't tried yoga, and I haven't tried group classes or wall climb, or there's a lot of climbing gyms here in the Bay Area. So, and it's funny because I get like a handful of people, like I'd say I've got 5 clients that like to climb, right? So they'll join a climbing gym and they'll do that. But it's something that 2 of them just thought about. They're like, it was interesting enough for them to try it, and they did, and they're sticking with that. And the cool thing about that, and this is as a fitness professional, don't be upset when somebody says, instead of seeing you once a week, I'm going to see you every other week because I have finances that, I need a budget to do this rock climbing thing. And you know what? Whatever it takes for you to keep moving and do something that's interesting. Think about climbing. It's a skill. It's a combination of strength, technical skill. It's interesting. There's definitely a community for climbers. So not to just harp on climbing, but just as an example of once you found your people, your village, go with that. But the key is find something, find that village if you haven't found it yet. If there's something that you're just kind of, you're feeling like something's missing in your life when it comes to fitness and how you move and what it takes to stay active, keep looking, because there's something out there for you. But first thing you need to do is just kind of look inside, know who you are first, and then go out there and adventure off and try different things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that was a pretty good summary. So, Ken, I know this was one of the things you're like, we're going to talk about personality. I was like, oh, well, you and I, like, we're kind of yin and yang, if you will, because we are, but we aren't. So, I mean, this was when we started diving deep into it. And those of you guys that don't know on the back end, Ken and I spend a lot of time talking on the phone and looking at different areas of research. So when we bring this information to you, we have kind of the most up-to-date stuff that we can find. But Ken, thanks for bringing this up, for sure.
Yeah, same to you, Wendy. So for those of you listening to both Wendy Batts and I, Ken Miller here on Random Fit, thank you so much for your time and giving us your attention on this episode when it comes to the fitness formula and your personality. So like, follow, subscribe, download, share, give us a 5 out of 5 when and where you can. And let us know what you want us to talk about in other episodes of Random Fit. So until next time, everybody, take care and be well.